Can you see my screen?
Not yet. We can see your camera, but I assume that's not what you're intending. Yep. On the meantime, Sam is the Asia Regional Director for the International Potato Center, the office of SIP in Asia, and he's been working really hard and with pretty good results in varietal replacement. Give some message about it.
Let me see if I can.
There should be a green button. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did that, but I cannot see my PowerPoint slide. That's what I
okay. I think you have to select once you click on the share screen button. There is multiple.
So all windows, maybe. Yeah, maybe the all windows is there. Share my screen again.
Yeah. Try again.
Okay, here it is. Can you see now?
Yeah, now something is coming. Yep. Now we can see it.
All right.
We go to presenters.
I think you can see now, correct?
We don't see the presenters view yet, or we don't see the full screen. We can only see your PowerPoint. Yeah.
Is the full screen now up?
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Eduardo, and thank you everybody for inviting me to this group. Again, as Eduardo said, it's probably very different from what you have been talking and have been discussing in this particular forum. Let me give a background of myself. I'm an agriculture economist by my training. I've been working in CJ system for last close to 14 and a half years. I was in 9 years. I was at ERI as the head of the social science division and the program leader. Then I moved to SIP in 2017. Been Asia regional director for SIP based in Philippines, Vietnam. Now I'm in the process of moving to India. What I'll be talking about today is I was told that to discuss about the dissemination work we are doing. I think it has a lot of implication in terms of the breeding program or the type of the products we need to develop for the farmers there. So a lot of implication in terms of insight you can get what is out there and what should be done I focus primarily on varietal replacement or varietal adoption, why it's not happening, what needs to be done to make it happen, particularly in case of India. But you can pretty much the concept you are using, the activity, the type of the intervention we are doing, probably applicable to many developing countries, both in Asia and Africa there. So my presentation broadly will cover. I understand that not everybody works on potato. I think all of you work in different crops. So I'll touch base on the significance of potato, both in Asia and India in particular. Then I will focus more on Indian potato sector development, with particular focus, special attention on varietal contribution and the future requirement in terms of the demand side there. Then talk about given all the emerging challenges we have, climate change, groundwater depletions, soil health, and any other emerging things, how to meet those future requirements there. And when you talk about the meeting the future requirements, the rapid adoption of new variety cannot come on the top of the things we need to address if we want to meet the future requirement there. So in those things, I'll focus on the factors affecting the varietal adoption, particularly in India, but in the context, it's applicable to many other Asian developing countries and how to improve it there. Just to tell you, the potato is the third most important crop in Asia, particularly in South. Economies, I always put charts there. So economies, you can see that the per capita level, the potato consumption has been on the rise since mid-90s. It used to be very slow rise throughout the 60s until mid-90s, but it took off in mid-90s, primarily the focus of China in terms of making potato as a food security crop, kind of their focus, their efforts to move away from cereal cereal focus there. They want to have a suite of crops, wheat, corn, rice, plus potato as a food security crop. So you'll see the Chinese per capita consumption took up from mid-90s, but other Asian countries per capita consumption also on the rise. If you see the chart here, that you have the bar, the global charts there, global per capita consumption. Then you have the green line. That's where the East Asia per capita consumption has largely contributed by China there. But also we have seen significant increase in per capita consumption, in South Asia, particularly driven by India, throughout the 1660s all the way until now. It's continued to rise. You can see there. Then the Southeast Asia is a very small consumer of potato there. You see very small, steady increase primarily in the processing sector there, and the per capita consumption right now is less than 5 kilograms per person in Southeast Asia country there. If you look at what I said, potato is becoming a more of an Asian crop. It used to be more tropical crop there, but now we are growing in the subtropical climate there. You can see Asia now accounts for nearly half of the global potato production. Used to be very negligent in 60s and 70s, but now they actually, eventually, if you see in next 10, 15 years, I think Asia will be producing more than half of the global production. As you see the continued decline of rest of the world potato production there. And within Asia, both China and India accounts for nearly more than 2/3 of the total production. So China is the top producer in the world, and India is the second largest producer in the world there. So they both account for nearly 2/3 of the total Asian production there. So if you just put the potato consumption in Asia, you can fit a line there, trend line there. You can see the total potato consumptions, both per capita and due to the other population growth, is going to continue consumption diversification. It's going to continue to rise in the foreseeable future there. Same type of growth we see in India, which is we have seen already significant growth in total potato consumptions. And if you put a trend line, it's going to continue to rise another 30-40% in the next 10 years there. So we expect significant increase in the potato consumption at per capita level. Also, when you factor the consumption diversification and the populations, you expect another 30% increase in potato consumption in India in the next 10 years. So just coming, I just need narrowing down to on Indian potato sector and how we have been addressing these varietal adoption issues in India, particularly. If you see the production is predominantly in the Indo-Gangetic plain there. If you see the blue dots there, that's where the productions happens there. And we have some products in the western part, primarily in the arid climate of Gujarat, where they grow processing varieties for French fries there. Then some products in the southern part of India. But it's primarily kind of limited in the Indo-Gangetic plain, both India and Bangladesh there. If you see, majority of the potato is grown in that part of the region here in the subcontinent there. So when you look at the crop calendar and the cropping system, it's predominantly a winter crop. So most of the parts of India and Bangladesh, Nepal, they grow in probably not in the hills of the Nepal, but the plains of the Nepal. It's mostly grown in the winter crops, planted in November, late October to November, December, and harvested in February, March there. So majority of the crop is harvested in March because it's a winter crop and planted after the paddy harvest there. So it's planted after the paddy harvest in November, December. So some part of India, the early planting takes place in northwest part of India, and late planting takes place in the eastern year. So it's kind of linked to when you plant your paddy and when you harvest your paddy there. So it's linked to that. So literally, it's a sandwich crop in between rice and maize in the northwest India, and the vegetables or lentils in the eastern India there. So it's most part of India is grown in between two crops there. Some parts it's only two crops, and potato is the only winter crop. But majority of the food basket in India, it is a sandwich crop between paddy and some other crop. And also it competes with wheat in the winter as a winter crop in the northwest part of India there. Many part of northwest India, Punjab, Haryana, if you're familiar with the map there, either they grow rice wheat or they grow rice, potatoes, maize, or some other crops there. So the potato kind of substitutes as a wheat in some parts, as a rotation crop also in Punjab and Haryana there. So if you look at the varietal development and what it has contributed to the potato sector development, between 1949 and 2020, that's we are talking about 70 years, 65 varieties were developed and released through the Central Potato Research Institute. That's the national level organizations under ICR, if you're familiar there. Total number of variety released 81. So other 15 or 16 variety came from abroad, particularly Dutch varieties, some of the other European varieties were released. If you look at the composition breakdown between processing and the table, primarily only 7 or 8 processing varieties and the rest table purpose. That's pretty obvious because if you look at Indian or in the subcontinent, 95% of potato is used as a table. It's only 5% is used as a processing, primarily for the chips purpose. And India imports most of its frozen French fry potatoes from the Europe and the US there. And if you look at the varietal adoption, 95% of India's 2.25 million hectares, that comes under CPRI variety, the central potato. Out of the 65 varieties, they account for literally almost all crop area in the country there. Then the acreage, if in the last 50 years, the acreage has increased significantly from less than 500,000 hectares to nearly 2.25. You can see the yield, substantial increase in the yield from 7 tons per hectare to 24 tons per hectare. Potato is the only crop I know, apart from cassava, I think, Indian yield is higher than Chinese yield. Otherwise, every other crops I know, the Chinese yield much greater than the Indian yield, but the Indian potato yield is greater than the Chinese yield there. So you could see last 50, 60 years, the production has increased from nothing to nearly 52 million tons of potato production. So all this growth you see, so it has come from this varietal development primarily done by the CPRI, partnership with SIP and other organizations there. So if you look at little most popular varieties and varietal turnover, which I presume as a breeder you are very interested in those things. If you look at the table varieties, the Kufri Pokhraj, one of the varieties, one of the most popular varieties, that was released in 1998. The main traits why it is been adopted is early maturing. Remember, I told you it's a sandwich crop. So farmers have planned something else after the potato there. Anything's early maturing, that's good for them. They can get the field available for the next crop. Also, the early maturing is good for the market. Remember, I told majority of the crops is harvested in March. If you got a variety like Pukhraj, you can harvest in 60, 65 days. You can sell it in the market before the bulk of the crop arrives, and there's a price, crash there. So that's the reason the Kufri Pokhraj has been the most popular variety, primarily with early maturing, and the farmers can sell it without any price risk there. That's the biggest problem in the potato is the price risk. Everything comes to the market right in March and the price crash there. The disadvantage in Pokhraj is the low keeping quality there. So most of the Kufraj, which is planted in early and harvested early, they're mostly consumed as fresh and they don't go to the warehouses there, the cold storage there. The second most important variety is the Kufri Jyoti, which was released in 1968. So I would like to remember those date of release because those are the one which matters. These are very old varieties, but it's still a mega variety in the most part of India because it looks good, good shape and size, tastes good, and the good storability, low generation rate. So that's the reason it is preferred in many parts of India there. The disadvantage is low yield. Also, some of the resistance to late blight, which you used to have before, has kind of disappeared now. It's very susceptible to resistance, susceptible to late blight there. The third one is the Kufri Bahar. That's released in 1980s. It has some advantage, primarily grown in Uttar Pradesh in the northwest part of India, early maturing, fast bulking, low rate of degenerations, and the good storability there. But disadvantage is susceptible to late blight there. Processing varieties, 1 out of 6 or 7, Kufri Chipsona, one that's the most popular one, that was released in 1998 there. If you look at all the varieties, all the 3 top table varieties and the processing varieties, the average age of variety is close to 30 years. What it means, either way, either they have not released anything in the last 20, 30 years, or all the variety they have released not good enough. So if you see the 65 varieties CPRI released, out of that, half of them were released after 2000. So in the last 22 years, half of those 65 varieties were released, and none of them have been the mega variety or the widely adopted variety in India there. So most of the varieties still we have is the older varieties close to 30 years old there. Let's kind of dive down and see the reasons why it's happening there. It's probably true in rice or other crops there. I used to work in Erie. So I know the average age of rice variety in South Asia is close to 25 years. So those varieties, older varieties still continue. Like Swarna is a mega variety in many parts of India, not been able to replace by any other variety been developed, released in the recent past. So what affects this varietal turnover or replacement there? So these are the factors, I kind of key factors I'm identifying here. First of all, do we have what farmers want? I think it's very sensible question to ask. If the farmers are not adopting new varieties, that means we may not have what they want. Then the second one is the timely availability of the preferred varieties. Are these varieties we are releasing it? Are these available in timely fashion, or we are releasing varieties which are already done with the time? In a sense, we take long time to release a variety. The traits which are important 20 years ago not there anymore, so that the farmers are not adapting, because a lot of the varieties we release, they're fixing the trait and releasing it. And if it takes long time, then the varieties have no use there. Then the seed system. So how good is your seed system so that they deliver the seed of new variety to small farmers quickly without much delay? So that's one of the factors. Then finally, what we have seen in particular in the potato or any other crops, roots crop, we have seen the small farmer conundrum, what I say. Because usually the average size of land holding in Asia is 1 hectare. In India, it's very close to 1 hectare there. But those when the small farmers plant potatoes, they only plant potato in a fraction of the area. So I have seen potato farmers in many parts of Eastern India, 0.03 acres. So only the small patch of land they grow potato. They're actually very minuscule. Because of the size, size effect there, they really cannot adopt a new variety. They don't have the power to buy new seed. Also, they cannot mechanize. Some of these disadvantages they have in the mechanizations adoption there. So that is also affecting the adoption of new varieties there for the smallholders there. So if you are a research organizations like SIP or ERI or CIMIT, you need to address a lot more than just developing varieties. I think it takes a lot more than to get it adopted at the ground level there. Unless you take a very holistic manner and address some of these things, then only you see the varietal turnover rate to higher. I'll tell you what we are doing to address it, particularly in the subcontinent, may be relevant to potato. Also, I think some of these interventions we are doing probably relevant to many other crops there. So what farmers are looking for in case of potato here? The marketability. Remember, potato, most of the farmers, they grow for the markets. So whatever the market wants, that's probably true for many other crops now. The farmers actually grow for selling. They buy or they get for their own food. They get other type of. So the few farmers now, very subsistence farmers now in the region there. Primarily the market drives their varietal selection there. For the market, it's the shape and size. I told you the Kufri Jyoti. Although the yield is low, this is one of the mega variety because of shape and size and the good storability there. So the market wants which are looking good, taste good, and also you can store it because you have to, put in the cold storage and get it out for the rest of the year there. The second most important one is it should fit the cropping system. So the different varieties probably needed in different parts of the country or region there. Your crop calendar is different. You have a window where it is winter crop. You have a window where the temperature is ideal to plant and harvest there. You have a window where you need the next crop to be on the ground there. So the variety you choose, it has to fit your cropping system, your area there. Then I told you early maturing, which is very important so that you avoid the market risk. If you have a longer duration, high yielding varieties, still you will lose money because the market price will crash when when there's a glut in the market there. If you can somehow avoid the glut and somehow plant a variety early and harvest early before the bulk of the produce comes in, you get good price. Even if it's a low yield, still farmers prefers it. Again, that goes with the short duration and early maturing. They kind of go together there. So high yielding for me comes as the fifth most important reason why the farmers will adopt a variety. So it's not the topmost reason why the farmers will adopt a variety. You can have a high yielding 130 days crop, you will not find any takers for that varieties. Even if it's yield 20-30% higher than your control, still you will not find any taker because you have the high yield, but you end up getting very low price, you lose money there. Then some of these, then the next one is the biotic stresses. One thing which is very important for potato is the lead blight. Any variety which has a lead blight resistance, there will be farmers who will be willing to adopt this, but that's specific to the region. Where the lead blight incidence is high, you will see varieties with a resistance will be adopted there. This may not be true for all across the region there. Then I have this abiotic stress, which is heat or drought tolerant, and the skin color. These are important, but they don't come on the top of their list when farmers decide what to adopt there. It's important, but not as important as shape, size, storability, or early maturing there. They're not that important there. So what affects varietal turnover and replacement? I think I already talked about that. Sorry. Okay. Let's talk about the timely availability of the preferred varieties. Exactly why it is a factor there. I'll give you an example of some of the SIP potato lines released in India, so that you see the duration it takes to get a variety released. This is called Kufri Lima. The variety name is Lima because Kufri Lima because it's a SIP lines there. So to give some credit to SIP, they have given the name Lima. Their Kufri is their name. Lima is our name there. So you can see the year of cross is 1997. So the year we received from SIP is 2007. Year it's introduced in the ECRIP trial. ECRIP is the trial, All India Coordinated Trials in 2011, and it was released in 2018. It is a heat tolerant varieties, high yielding variety. There's some good traits there, but it took nearly, since it was received from SIP in 2007, it really took us 11 to 12 years before it got evaluated and got released in the country there. Then the second variety we just got released, one called Kufri Thar 2, that was released in 2020. Just look at the year it was received from on SIP. It's a 2008, introduced in ECRIP in 2015. We have very good traits there, but took nearly 12 years to get it released, evaluated and released. So this does not include the time it was crossed in the SIP. SIP, it was probably developed 5-10 years before that. So it came to the country, took another 12-15 years to get it released in the system there. But once you release it, that is not the end of it, at least in potato. You take another 5 to 8 years, what I'll talk is for the seed to be available to the farmers. Just getting it released is not the end of the story here. So time taken to release a SIP lines in India or any CG lines, it takes around 10 years to reach the country. So it took 10 years from when it was crossed in SIP, and by the time it entered India, additional 12 years to get it released in the country, and the 5 years or even more to have a substantial amount of seed in the farmer's field. It is not easy to produce seed, particularly in potato. It takes minimum of 5 years to have some amount of seed at the farmer's field there. Normally, if it is a SIP lines or any other CG variety, I'm talking outside variety, CPRI, who is the one produce all the breeder seed, then neglect the SIP lines. That's even it's demanded by the farmers and it will be adopted. Still, they do not produce enough breeder seed there. So that is another disadvantage having a CG lines in the national partner, and the partners, they will try to produce enough breeder seed for their own varieties rather than for the SIP line. That takes more time there. So in total, it takes around 27-30 years more for new variety to reach farmers, at least in the case of potato. I know that is the case also, maybe little less in case of rice, because I know rice also it takes around 20-25 years by the time it reaches farmers there. Maybe the seed component in rice probably not so long. The rice once released, the seed is produced by other agency and the farmers can keep it there. So to avoid that thing, what we have done, the intervention part comes here. Recently, we released a SIP lines called UC map. That UC map was done, the field trial evaluation and release was done in Bhutan. So what we did is this UC map, this was released by the Ministry of Agriculture in ministry in the country there. It did not go to the usual trials in India. What it does, there is an agreement ERI facilitated when I was at ERI called Regional Seed Cooperation. So there's 8 member countries there now in there. We are now adding more countries there. The whole idea of the regional cooperation there, if the variety is developed in one country or released in one country, the trial data can be available to the other member country. The other member country can use the trial data of the neighboring country. Maybe they have the same agroecology or same requirement there. So this can save actually 5 to 10 years of your time if you do that. So it's also facilitates the movement of the seed across the region. That's also a secondary thing. So you see some of the benefits of this particular agreement. Lot of rice varieties released in the South Asia, in variety which was notified in India, been released in Bangladesh and Nepal using the trial data of India. Similarly, many varieties released in Bangladesh, been released in India and Nepal using the trial data. But these things are mostly limited to CG varieties there. These are not the variety released by the national partners. Suppose the Indian scientists develop a variety and release it, that is not included in the list so far. So far, it's mostly the CG varieties released in Bangladesh or ERI varieties released in Bangladesh. We use the trial data in India and release in the eastern part of India there. So we use the same methods to release this SIP lines called UC map, which is a biofortified high in iron and zinc. It has some resistance into lead blight. It's a red skin. It's preferred by eastern part of the country there. The high yielding varieties. So far, we know that we have at least saved 7 to 8 or 10 years at least. If we would have got the in vitro plants to India and do the trial and ECRIP trial, it would have taken another 10 to 12 years there. So we actually saved 10 to 12 years by using the regional seed cooperation and using the trial data of the neighboring country in the region there, who are the member of this thing there. So we are actually just telling you that I worked on these 2 things, we're adding Philippines and Vietnam. We did a lot of policy advocacy in the last 3 years as part of CCAS project. So they both have agreed to join the agreement there, regional seed cooperation. So we are increasing the number from both South and Southeast Asia. There are 9 countries will be member in this regional seed cooperation, who will be willing to give the data to the neighboring countries if they're willing to use the data to release the variety, so that we can save at least 10 years. But it includes all crops, not only rice, potato, it includes all crops there. So we can save at least 10 to 12 years before we lose this vital time there. The next one is the seed systems. As I said, you can have a variety available, but if you don't have a vibrant seed system, then which cannot deliver seeds, then also it will not reach farmers' field there. That's a very important, particularly in case of potato there. So if you look at the current potato seed system in India there, I have some statistics on the left side. You can see the total acreage and the seed rate, and total, if you're looking at a desirable seed replacement rate of 25%, you would need at least 1.4 million tons of seed. But total seed available right now is 500,000 tons, mostly by the public sector and some by the private sector. And private sector is kind of increasing their share over time there. So India has a seed deficit of around 1 million tons there. So right now the seed replacement rate is less than 10%, close to 8 or 9% there. Primarily because it's a centralized system. Seed is only produced in Punjab using aeroponic, very high-tech, capital-intensive technology there, and transported to different parts of India there. So it makes it very difficult for the smallholder to purchase because of size effect there. If you have to buy seed from Punjab, you have to order 25 tons of seed. 25 tons of seed means you have to have 25 acres of land there. As I say, the farmers are actually sub-acres land holding. So they don't have the access to this certified seed produced in Punjab. And most of the farmers, what they do, they just go to the local market and find out the small discarded tubers, which are not good enough for human consumption, use it as the seed there. When you use that as seed, then that shows up in the very low yield there. And the low yield, that discourages farmers to produce potato there. So there's a kind of vicious circle there. In addition to that, the high price fluctuation of seed tubers. As I said, it's harvested in March and the price drops and the farmers lose money. And there is no price protection program like rice and wheat. In India, there is a minimum support price. There is no minimum support price for potato there. So it makes it very difficult for smallholders, where the seed cost in potato is nearly 60% of the cost of production, to take the risk and buy certified seed, try new varieties, because he doesn't know whether he'll be able to sell or recover his cost of production. So that also becomes very difficult for smallholder to adopt a new variety or go for a new, quality seed of a new varieties there. So this again, for smallholder, as I said, accessing the seed of a new varieties is even more difficult, because we have millions of smallholders in India, Bangladesh, all parts of India. I have seen the size of potato holding is probably sub acre. I've seen the size, many farmers 0.03 acres. So they need few bags of seed. They cannot buy it from a formal source. They end up using seed, which is a discarded human consumption there. So that is also a big problem there in terms of if you're addressing the farmers to adopt new varieties, somehow you need to address this one, the size effect there. How you take care of the size effect there? How do you link them to the market so that they are willing to buy or try out new seed there? Because these people are not connected to the market there. I'll go very quickly. I know there's time there. So I just want to.
We actually only have 5 more minutes, Sam.
Okay, I'll go very quickly here. We have introduced the aeroponic is the traditional seed system. We have introduced called apical rooted cutting, very low cost technology. Your starting material tissue culture instead of aeroponic there. You have a poly house, very low cost poly house. You do this apical cutting, then you multiply those apical cutting, and you produce a generation 0 seed with a very low cost. So we thought this is the way we can decentralize the seed system in India instead of depending only on Punjab and producing the expensive mini tubers. The small holders can be self-sufficient in seed. So that will also facilitate our varietal adoption, introducing new variety to the small holders there. And so far, we have been extremely successful in this apical rooted cutting in several states. This is in Odisha, this is in Assam, this is in Hassan. A lot of nurseries have taken off seedling business in potato. So they produce those cutting, they take the tissue culture plant, set up the mother bed, do the cutting, and sell the rooted cutting for 1 to 2 rupees to smallholders. Smallholders buy those cuttings, produce generation 0 seed, generation 1 seed, and they keep for themselves and sell it to the other farmers there. We're trying to use this seed system to introduce the new varieties to the smallholders there. So the several states we are actually trying out, hugely successful in terms of influencing the seed system in the country, which will have ultimately impact of varietal adoption there. We're also looking at the certification process of this particular new technology, working with the ministry and the Indian Council of Agricultural Research there. So we are also using this ARC apical rooted cutting, the varieties SIP has. So we are working with our partners. We are producing the G0 seed, our UC map. The varieties which are neglected by the national partners, because this is not that variety, we are actually introducing that to the ARC and trying to multiply seed there so that it reaches the farmers quicker than it takes another 5-10 years. The other things we have done is the branding of the seed. So this is working with the Haryana government. We have created a logo for them called Har Alu. Alu is the potato, Har is the state, and so that the farmers get the certification and they can use that brand or logo to get some credibility with the farmers on the other states there. So finally what we are doing is also a lot of doing cluster farming. We call it small farmer large field to avoid that size and the scale effect there, where the farmers can come together. So we basically have a kind of bottoms up called small farmer large field. We bring 50 to 100 farmers in a village. They basically participatory bottoms up approach. They come together to purchase seed together. So 50 farmers have 25 acres. They can purchase one truck of seed from Punjab or wherever and collect money and bring the seed and distribute it. By doing alone only this cluster farming and making them use quality seed of newer varieties, they could double or triple their yield overnight without doing anything there. So seed has so much influence into varietal adoption there. There is a patch of land in the small farmer large field. You see many small pieces of land. They're still doing their own cultivation, but they come together when there's the advantage of buying seed together, buying fertilizer together, renting machinery together, right? Planter or digger, whatever there, to reduce the cost and become more efficient and increase the production. So there are a lot of success story in terms of the villages which have adopted this cluster farming. Some farmers have taken up the seed production now. So they are now demanding new varieties now. This is where I'm coming. The varietal turnover can be impacted if the farmers know what they're doing there. So they're demanding what are the new varieties there, because they know they are linked to the market. They can sell it to PepsiCo or Kistley or any of these potato chips manufacturing companies. So ideally, what we are trying to achieve to improve the varietal replacement, we want to reduce the time 30 years to 10 years. That's our target, is to reduce the 30 years time taken to 10 years using this direct route, regional seed cooperation, rather than going through traditional route of trials and stuff. And we are trying to change the seed system, introducing this alternate seed production system where the farmer is a decentralized and farmers driven, so that farmers take charge of the seed production and become self-sufficient. That will also create demand for the new variety there. Then this cluster farming to have this strong backward and the forward linkages there. So we are targeting these three different things to make sure the farmers are up, are willing to try out new varieties in the things, so they're much more progressive thinking will come into there. So here's my last slides. My concluding remarks. So as I said, we are looking at 10 billion people in less than 3 decades, 2050. On top of that, there's lot of other challenges we have there. So for me, the rapid varietal the development or replacement or turnover, whatever you say, is very critical to be sustainable, to be there. So for this, you need to have these three things I identified. This evaluation dissemination cycle should be significantly reduced. So the variety you release is not outdated. It should have been released 20 years ago. It's released now. That particular stress or the traits you develop not relevant to the region anymore. So the your variety is pretty much not going to be adopted by farmers. Then the seed system needs to be taken care of if you want the varietal replacement to be high. Then you need to address the smallholders issues in terms of purchasing seeds and linking the market so that they are willing to try out new varieties there. With that, let me stop my presentation and stop sharing it. So,
no, Sam, that was terrific. That was really interesting. Thanks for giving such a nice presentation. Don't think that I wanted to rush you. I just wanted to give enough time for people, to also
sure, no problem.
Discuss and bring some ideas. So there is a couple of comments and questions in the chat, but I want to encourage, anyone who wants to, drop a comment or just say something, please jump in, raise your hand, and we'll be happy to give you the word. Maybe Sam, just to trigger the discussion, there seems to be, of course, you put some very important points there. Is there one that you actually think is more important than other? Because you mentioned at the beginning, there is a 30-year lag, and I assume that actually the traits, if they are, keeping with the same variety for 30 years, I assume the traits don't really change that much. So I have a hard time thinking that the breeders, do not achieve the traits that the farmer needs, but maybe that's the case as well. But it seemed to me that actually the seed system part seemed to play a more important role in this delay in the variety turnover. But do you have a different perspective? Is there one that is more important than other?
No, you are absolutely right. The seed system is very critical, particularly for the root tubers and root crops there. But the seed system is not very well developed, and the seed replacement rate right now is very, very low in India, Bangladesh, or many other countries there. So the tackling the seed system is very critical, as you said. The thing is the evaluation, the release process. You cannot do anything that their national the policy, the way the variety has to enter the evaluation process, other things. You have to go through this, and that takes time and other things there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we're lucky to have this that side thing we can take. To go to the ministry, and the ministry is willing to do that, you can get it released. But the problem is, once the variety we got it released last year, the UC map from Bhutan, when the variety was released from ministry, there was no taker in the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. They did not like it. So you have to have that friction between the ministry and the scientist group there. Ministry mostly bureaucrats. They want more action, more things there. But the scientists sitting there, they're basically protecting their territory. They really don't want to bypass the trial process, which I believe there is some lot of value having a trial done in the country instead of using the data there. So we came to some compromise last year with the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Okay, this is the variety notified, but we'll do 1 year trial data. We'll do 1 year trial in some parts of the country and collect the data and quickly start the seed multiplication there.
Okay, okay. No, thanks, Sam. That helps. I will give the word to Wolfgang. He has a question or a comment. Wolfgang, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I would like to jump in and the point. And Sam, thank you very much for this presentation and let's say the real data and how long it takes. I know from sweet potato on average, I think it takes about 5 years to get a registered or a sweet potato candidate variety as of the tops 2 countries. And some of you may know that for this reason, I introduced this concept of elite crosses, where we have in principle a selection at the platform, and then the additional selection for specific traits locally important in the target countries. And these elite true seed are true seed and get out faster. So and also in this context, there is this in vitro germination where from practice, also not theoretically, what we observed is that all clones germinated in vitro from true seed are clean. So why this still takes so much time? And I think, Eduardo, we could think about why this logistically or focus, also additionally target this aspect, why this takes logistically so much time. La culpa no tienen los mejormentadores. This is the logistics of those who are doing the dissemination and the cost they are putting on this and the procedures they have. Also only a short example. It's now the third time that an entire in vitro germinated population was completely clean. But they are testing for all viruses in sweet potato, all. They are testing in small bulks of 5 clones. So this material does not go out directly. It has to be tested for all virus. The only compromise is that it is tested in bulks of 5 clones. Also could be also 20. And when we do it the next time, I can predict the results. They will be free of virus. There is no virus in vitro germinated clones. And the cost to ship this is I better not to tell about. This is this is an aspect which is specific for clonally propagated crops. I'm absolutely sure cassava is facing the similar problems, but this is a point to look at because this is logistics and it can speed up to get genetic gains to countries extremely. As I said, thank you very much, Sam, to speak up and present these numbers, which are really shocking.
Yeah, thank
30
you.
years. Sorry that this is others might think, oh, what is wrong with these guys? That this takes so much time. But it has to do with the dissemination and the logistics. And this is not in the hand of the breeders.
Yep.
So,
yep. No, that's a good point, Wolfgang. Indeed, that's why my first question was, is there one that is having more impact than other? Let me just pass it, to the rest of the people that also want to speak. But thanks, Wolfgang. That was a pretty nice comment. And thanks, Sam, for addressing it. First, before I pass it to Ravi, there is a question in the chat from Hans on what is the status of the true potato seed technology in seed multiplication. And Sam, I don't know if there's something that you want to say about it very quickly.
No, I think, I'm not a technical person. If I understand, I don't see true potato seed in any parts of India except one northeastern state, Tripura. That's where some of the true potatoes, because the traditional seed do not reach there in that part of that country. That's why they're using true potato seeds. And mostly because of the heterogeneity in the tuber size and shape. That's the reason they have not addressed, if I understand correctly. Now they're moving to a most deployed breeding, I think. To address that thing. But true potato thing is not there anymore. Not a priority things in any of these, even national partners also right now.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Ravi, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Eduardo, and thanks, Sam, for identifying all the issues potato is facing. I was just going to say that in case of wheat, we have completely opposite experience with India, So semi-developed lines released by the ICAR partners, they are scaling it up very fast nowadays. And maybe people who are looking into variety turnover, they need to look at it because within a year or two, the new varieties are hitting on the top of the list of seed indent there. So there are certain things which have been done to cut the number of years taken to release a variety that they did, and that was done by ICAR institutes. So the lesson here for us has been, we have to work much more closely with them, right from the beginning. And we don't take we don't decide also on which variety you release, which you don't release. So not put any bias, but let that decision be made by them based on their data. And that helps a lot because they own the product and then they are the one who are trying to push it as fast as possible. So I think that it's an important topic for many crops and we should spend more time. As somebody wrote rightly that maybe we are too much worried about accelerating genetic gain. I think that is important in breeding program, but at the same time, how do we accelerate the delivery path and variety turnover? To me, that is much more important as we learn that sometimes trying to put all of our energy in making a smaller genetic gain in our breeding populations. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your comment.
You're absolutely correct, Ravi. And that's the reason we are looking more at the seed systems and making sure the farmers have the ability to buy new seeds, so that will be quicker in terms of varietal turnover rather than changing the system there. As you said, now they have to follow the policy, particularly maybe wheat is different from potato. I think as Wolfgang said, we actually imported 57 biofortified potato lines. They comes in the tube in vitro. And it took nearly 5 years to do the virus testing and get some seeds to do the first. So we haven't seen the daylight yet. Already 5 years passed. So because this is the nature of the crop we have right now here, it takes time. So there is nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, maybe there needs to be some blue sky, discussions, blue sky ideas about the seed systems and how to improve it across the CG. It seems to be something that really concerns everyone. There is one last question in the chat, Sam. I'm going to read it in case you have any reaction. This is Haile from ICRISAT. He's saying in West Africa, ECOWAS has harmonized seed policy, allowing varieties released in one member country to be registered in another member country with a simple procedure if the variety is found suitable. Some countries, on the other hand, are not following through, insisting their own national seed policies. Could you elaborate on some of your policy lobbying activities for potato in Asia?
Yeah, this particular regional seed agreement actually facilitated by ERI. I think Gary, I see Gary Atlin's name. I think Gary was also one of the guy was involved initially for the Strasa project, stress tolerant rice variety there. And as you said, we are not forcing countries to include seeds of their own seed. Suppose India released its own variety, India is not bound to give all the data and the in vitro clones to Bangladesh if Bangladesh wants to. It's up to India to decide. But what we are using this agreement, mostly the CG public varieties, mostly the variety released through the CG systems. So those are the things. Suppose the CG wheat variety, rice variety released in Bangladesh, then the Eastern India, which is the same agroecology, they can use the trial data to release it. Similarly, Sona Sabuan, one of those submergence tolerant varieties, which was released in Bangladesh first, it was released in India using the trial data from there. So we are actually not forcing countries to give up their data and give up their varieties to other countries if they don't decide to do so. But that is a long-term goal of this regional agreement, that countries are willing to give data, informations, and the seeds to other countries. But right now we are trying to operationalize only with the CG lines.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Gary is saying in the chat that it was this person called Umesh Singh who pushed through the rice agreement.
Correct.
So
yes,
that's it's good to hear your reaction. People is still already starting to leave because they have another meeting. But I think this actually just opened the Pandora box, and probably many people wants to hear more about this particular topic. So I encourage everyone here in the call, if you have a different experience or a similar experience, to maybe also share it with this community. And like I said, probably try to discuss how to improve these things in the short and medium term. So Sam, nothing else other than we appreciate this presentation and leading this discussion. Thanks a lot for being willing to present, and yeah, terrific presentation, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Bye-bye.
Everyone have a great day. Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.